Ethan lived in a small, worn-out room on the edge of the city, a place where the walls whispered stories of struggle and dreams unfulfilled. Every morning, before the sun fully rose, he would walk to the small repair shop where he worked. The shop wasn't much: a rusty shutter, shelves cluttered with broken radios, watches, and old fans. But for Ethan, it was a world that kept his hope alive. He wasn't rich, not even close. His clothes were faded, his shoes worn thin, but his heart was kind and full of quiet strength. He worked hard, not for luxury, but for dignity. He believed that even the smallest act of goodness could brighten someone's world. Every evening as he walked home, he passed by a flower boutique near the main street. The shop smelled of roses, lilies, and jasmine, a scent that made him forget his exhaustion for a moment. But more than the flowers, it was her that caught his attention: Clara. Clara was the daughter of a wealthy businessman. She often stood near the shop arranging flowers, helping her friends choose bouquets or simply admiring the colors. She had a gentle elegance and the kind that made people stop and look. Her long brown hair shimmered in the sunlight. Her smile could light up even the dullest day. But to Ethan, it wasn't just her beauty. It was the sadness in her eyes that intrigued him. He noticed that she smiled for everyone, yet when no one was watching, her smile faded. She looked like someone surrounded by people, yet deeply lonely inside. Ethan didn't know why, but he felt connected to her. Maybe because loneliness recognizes loneliness. One rainy evening, as he stood across the street waiting for the downpour to stop, he saw her helping an old woman pick up flowers that had fallen to the ground. She didn't care that her expensive dress was getting soaked. She simply smiled and helped. That moment touched Ethan deeply. A heart like that deserves happiness, he thought. That night, as he counted his day's earnings, barely enough to cover rent and food, he couldn't shake her image from his mind. The next morning, while passing a small street market, something shiny caught his eye. It was a simple silver hairpin shaped like a butterfly. The vendor said, "Only $2, sir. Pure silver finish." Ethan held it gently. It wasn't grand, but it was delicate, graceful, and somehow reminded him of Clara. He looked at the few coins in his pocket. It was almost all he had left for the day. His stomach growled, and he hadn't eaten since morning. But his heart whispered, "Some things are worth more than food." He smiled softly and handed the coins to the vendor. "I'll take it." That night, Ethan sat on his small wooden bed, turning the hairpin over in his hands. It wasn't just a gift. It was a symbol of what he wanted to give: kindness, sincerity, and a reason for her to smile again. He wrapped it carefully in a small piece of brown paper and tied it with a string. Then he looked out the window at the city lights, imagining her reaction. Would she even accept it? Or would she laugh like others might? Still, he told himself, even if she never takes it, I'll know I tried. I'll know I gave something from my heart. That night, as the rain whispered outside and the city slept, Ethan closed his eyes, dreaming not of wealth or fame, but of a simple smile from the girl with the lonely eyes. And in that quiet moment, the poor man decided to do something extraordinary. He would give a gift not of value, but of meaning. The next morning, the city woke up under a pale golden sun. Ethan dressed in his cleanest shirt, though it was faded and patched at the sleeves, and carefully tucked the small wrapped box inside his pocket. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from nervous hope. As he walked through the bustling streets, he rehearsed what he might say. "Good morning, Miss Clara. I brought you something." No, that sounded too bold. Maybe, "I saw this and thought of you." That seemed better. But every version he tried felt wrong. He was just a poor mechanic. What right did he have to approach someone like her? Still, his heart refused to listen to reason. He remembered her gentle eyes, her kind smile, and how she helped that old woman in the rain. She wasn't like the others from her world. She had warmth. And Ethan believed that kindness deserved to be acknowledged, even if it came from someone like him. When he reached the flower boutique, his heartbeat quickened. Clara stood outside, arranging a bouquet of white lilies. She wore a soft pastel dress, her hair gently tied back with a ribbon. The sunlight touched her face, making her glow like something unreal. Ethan hesitated across the street. What if she laughed? What if she got angry, thinking he was being foolish? People from her world didn't usually welcome kindness from the poor. As he stood frozen, a group of Clara's friends approached her, young, stylish, and loud. They laughed, chatted, and pointed at passing cars. Ethan's courage began to fade. But then Clara's gaze lifted, and for a brief moment their eyes met. She smiled politely, recognizing the quiet man who always passed by. That small smile gave him strength. He took a deep breath, stepped forward, and approached her. "Good morning," he said softly, his voice almost trembling. Clara looked at him curiously. "Oh, hello. You're the man from the repair shop, right? I've seen you pass by." "Yes, ma'am," he said, nodding nervously. I know this might seem strange, but I wanted to give you something." Her friends exchanged glances, stifling giggles. One of them whispered, "Is he serious?" But Ethan ignored them. He reached into his pocket and held out the little brown wrapped box. Clara blinked in surprise. "For me?" he nodded. "It's nothing expensive. Just something that reminded me of you. I hope you don't mind." For a long second, no one spoke. The street seemed quiet around them. Clara's friends whispered, "Oh, how embarrassing," but Clara didn't react. She carefully took the box and unwrapped it. Inside lay the small silver butterfly hairpin, glimmering softly in the sunlight. Her expression softened. The whispers around her grew louder. "It's cheap. How cute. He must be crazy." But Clara didn't hear them. She looked at Ethan's face, nervous, sincere, full of kindness, and felt something shift in her heart. "It's beautiful," she said quietly. Her voice silenced everyone. She looked up at Ethan with a gentle smile. "Thank you. I'll wear it right now." And right there in front of her friends and the entire street, she tucked the butterfly pin into her hair. The silver sparkled against her brown locks, and for a brief moment everything else faded away. Ethan stood frozen, stunned by her kindness. He had expected rejection, laughter, not gratitude. Clara smiled again, her eyes glistening softly. "You have a kind heart," she said. "No one has ever given me something so simple yet so thoughtful." Ethan bowed his head slightly. "I just wanted to see you smile again," he said honestly. Her friends stood speechless. For the first time, Clara ignored their opinions completely. She looked at Ethan, a poor man with nothing to offer but sincerity, and realized that maybe, just maybe, she had found something rare. As Ethan walked away, the silver butterfly shimmered in her hair, a quiet symbol of a connection neither of them could yet explain. Days passed after that unexpected encounter, yet the memory of it stayed alive in both of their hearts. Ethan went back to his daily routine, fixing watches, repairing radios, and polishing old clocks. But something had changed. Every time he looked at the small empty corner of his workbench, he smiled quietly, remembering Clara's words. "It's beautiful." And so thoughtful. He never expected to see her again. To him, their worlds had touched once, by accident, and that was enough. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. One bright morning, as Ethan was repairing an old wristwatch, the bell above the shop door chimed. He looked up, and there she was. Clara stood at the entrance, wearing a light summer dress and a shy smile. For a moment, Ethan thought he was dreaming. "Good morning," she greeted softly. Ethan quickly stood up, wiping his hands on his apron. "Miss Clara, I didn't expect to see you here," she chuckled. "You can just call me Clara," she said kindly. "I actually came because my father's pocket watch isn't working. I heard you're the best repairman in this area." Ethan blinked, speechless. I'll do my best," he managed to say. She handed him the golden watch, its chain glinting under the shop's dusty light. Over the next few days, Clara returned again, sometimes to check on the watch, other times just to talk. She was curious about everything, his work, his tools, even the way he kept the tiny shop so neat. She'd often sit on the old wooden stool near his workbench, watching him repair delicate pieces with patient hands. At first, Ethan thought she was just being polite. But as days turned into weeks, he began to realize she truly enjoyed being there. She'd bring tea, sometimes a sandwich, and occasionally just a smile. The townspeople started whispering, "The rich girl and the poor mechanic? Impossible." But Clara didn't care. One afternoon, as the golden light of sunset filled the shop, Clara said quietly, "Ethan, can I tell you something?" He looked up from his work. "Of course," she hesitated, her eyes glistening. "Everyone thinks I have everything, money, comfort, friends, but they don't see how lonely I really am. My life is full of noise but empty of peace." Ethan listened silently, the ticking clocks around them filling the quiet. she continued. People give me expensive gifts. Flowers, jewelry, but none of it ever feels real. That day when you gave me the hairpin, it was the first time someone gave me something from the heart. Not out of obligation or pretense. That's why I wear it every day. Ethan's throat tightened. He had never imagined his small act could mean so much. He smiled faintly. I didn't have much to give. Only what I could afford. Clara shook her head gently. You gave more than anyone ever has, Ethan. You gave sincerity, something money can't buy. For a moment they sat in silence, their hearts speaking a language words couldn't express. The sunlight framed them in gold as if time itself had paused. From that day on, Clara visited the shop often, not as a customer, but as a friend. She'd laugh at his jokes, share stories of her childhood, and sometimes help him clean the shelves. The people in town began to gossip louder, but neither of them cared. For the first time in years, Ethan's days felt lighter. And Clara, the girl who once smiled only for appearances, now smiled because she truly meant it. And every time she tucked that silver butterfly hairpin into her hair before stepping out, it reminded her that true beauty wasn't found in diamonds or gold, but in the kindness of a poor man's heart. Weeks turned into months, and Clara's visits to the repair shop became a quiet rhythm in Ethan's simple life. Every morning, he would wake up early, clean his little shop, and wait, not for customers, but for her soft laughter and the sound of her footsteps approaching. Their friendship had grown beyond words. They shared tea, stories, and sometimes silent moments that spoke more than any conversation ever could. Clara would often sit by the window, her butterfly hairpin glimmering under the sunlight while Ethan worked at his bench. To anyone passing by, it looked like a scene from a dream, a poor mechanic and a rich girl smiling. Together, as if the world outside didn't exist, but not everyone saw it that way. Rumors began to spread in harsh whispers that reached Clara's father, Mr. Reynolds. A proud businessman, he was furious when he found out his daughter was spending time with a poor repairman. One day you'll inherit everything I've built, he scolded her. And you're wasting your time with a man who has nothing. Clara stood tall, her voice calm but firm. He may not have money, father, but he has something more important. Honesty, kindness, and a heart that truly cares. Can you say the same about the people who surround us? Her words struck deep, but Mr. Reynolds refused to listen. He forbade her from seeing Ethan again. Yet Clara's heart wouldn't obey. A few weeks later, the Reynolds family hosted a grand charity event at their mansion, an evening filled with glittering gowns, chandeliers, and music. Important guests filled the hall, from businessmen to politicians, all eager to show off their wealth and influence. Clara, dressed in an elegant white gown, stood by the stage. But unlike the others, she wore no diamond jewelry, only that same silver butterfly hairpin. It shimmered gently under the lights, a quiet reminder of where her heart truly belonged. As the speeches began, her father introduced her proudly to the crowd. My daughter Clara Reynolds will now say a few words, he announced. Clara stepped up to the microphone. Her voice trembled at first, then grew steady. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we gather here to celebrate generosity and kindness. But I've learned that true kindness doesn't always come from the rich or the powerful. Sometimes it comes from the most unexpected places, the audience murmured, unsure what she meant. Clara continued, her eyes scanning the crowd, and then they stopped. At the back of the room, standing quietly near the door in a clean but simple shirt, was Ethan. One of the servants had invited him in, thinking he was a technician there to fix something. He looked nervous, out of place, and yet his presence filled her with courage. Clara smiled warmly. This hairpin I wear, she said, touching the butterfly gently, was given to me by someone who had nothing to gain from it. It isn't made of gold or precious stones, but it means more to me than all the riches in this room. It came from a man who reminded me what love and kindness truly mean. The crowd fell silent. Ethan's heart pounded as everyone turned toward him. And then, in a moment that stunned everyone, Clara stepped down from the stage and walked straight to him. She took his hand, looked into his eyes, and said softly, yet clearly enough for all to hear, "This is the man I was talking about. The one who taught me the value of sincerity, the beauty of simplicity, and the strength of a pure heart." Gasps filled the room. Her father's face turned pale. Guests exchanged shocked glances, but Clara didn't care. She held Ethan's hand tighter. "Tonight," she said, her voice breaking slightly, "I choose to stand beside him. not as a rich woman and a poor man, but as two souls who found each other through kindness. Tears glimmered in her eyes as Ethan whispered, "Clara, are you sure?" She smiled. "I've never been more sure of anything." The hall erupted, some clapping, some whispering, but in that moment all Ethan could see was Clara's radiant smile. The same smile he had dreamed of that rainy night when he first bought the hairpin. And as the music began to play again, the silver butterfly shimmered beneath the chandeliers, a symbol of love that rose above wealth, pride, and the world's judgment. For the poor man and the rich girl, it wasn't the end, it was the beginning of something extraordinary.